On this episode of the InsurTech Geek podcast, talking about protecting consumers and regulating a $22 billion industry with Scott Kipper, Insurance Commissioner of the Nevada Division of Insurance. The InsurTech Geek podcast, powered by JB Knowledge, is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. This episode is sponsored by Terra, your strategic ally in modernizing insurance claims operations. Explore our cloud-native risk management information system at terra.insure. That's Terra.insure. How's it going, Scott? Glad to have you. Welcome on to the InsurTech Geek podcast.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, and along with Scott, I've got my illustrious co-host, the most interesting man in insurance, Rob Galbraith. Rob, how's it going down in San Antonio?
It's going. I always forget how busy this time of year. We're recording this right before the holidays, and so just shopping for gifts, obviously, and everything. But there's also a lot of use of things like dental benefits and whatnot. So yeah, it's a busy time just trying to cram in everything right here at year-end time.
Sure is. Yeah, same here. It's presents for kids and end of your Christmas parties and all that stuff. It's a lot to handle, but we have a very special guest, and I'm really excited that he's on because we've never had an insurance commissioner on the show before, and I'm super excited to talk about this. This is a regulated industry, and so it helps to have the regulators on and talk about real issues. And of course, we're going to talk about the impact of technology on regulation and keeping up with regulations, how regulations can keep up with technology. It's a complicated interconnectedness between technologists and regulators. And so that's why we've got the insurance commissioner of the state of Nevada. I just want to make sure I state it correctly for the locals that are listening to this in Nevada that I recognize. I might have said Nevada. It's Nevada.
Well, so. Yeah, James, you're not going to be the first, certainly, and you probably won't be the last. So certainly totally acceptable.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to have Scott on here. Now, you're in Carson City, Nevada, correct?
That is correct.
So he's got a fantastic view out his window. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful part of the country. I've had the privilege of going up there a couple times and really enjoyed my visit and see why you have so many people moving over there. It's really quite a special place and quite different. I mean, Nevada in general is really interesting. Just a dynamic landscape, a lot of mountains and deserts and salt flats, and it's just a really interesting place. And from Vegas all the way up to Reno, it's a really wild and interesting state, isn't it?
Oh, to me it's fascinating, and it's completely beautiful. I'm a Westerner by heart. I grew up in Wyoming, and I lived in Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and the desert is absolutely beautiful if you see it in the right light. But Nevada is a very special and unique place. You mentioned the metropolitan area of Las Vegas, which is a spectacular modern American city, and then drive up to Reno through 7.5 or 8 hours of a desert, ghost towns, a lot of old mining technology from the past. It's truly a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you grew up in Wyoming. You went to University of Wyoming. You got a bachelor's in business. When you were growing up, what did you want to do?
Oh man, if I had my druthers, I'd have been a professional baseball player. I just thought that would have been the life.
Yeah.
But then, looked at the first curveball that was thrown at me, and I figured I better find a different way to make a living.
Well, you and me both. Anything involving aim, I was really never any good at. So I played soccer growing up, and then baseball, and I played catcher in baseball, could not hit for a lick, and I played soccer and was great at defense. So I found out I'm just a defensive guy. If it involves inflicting pain on others and defending against an offense, I can do that, but I didn't have the skill on the offense there. I always wanted to be a good pitcher. I worshipped Oral Hershiser back in the Dodgers Hershiser days and fancied myself as being like him one day. Just definitely never had the talent to get there.
Well, funny side story. Oral Hershiser's married to a young lady that is actually went to high school with my sister in Laramie.
Oh my gosh.
It's a small world.
So I was just reviewing my baseball card collection with my 13-year-old daughter. I have an entire section of his baseball cards. So we may have to talk later. I may need to send some things over to get autographed.
There you go. We could certainly work something out there.
We could see it, right? So you graduated from UW, from University of Wyoming, and you became a health analyst at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. And you spent some time there. So when you were in college, you just hear about opportunities in insurance? Because, business schools, even now, almost none of them have insurance programs. Some select ones do, but it's very rare. At the time, 96, before 96, they really didn't. So what was it that turned you on to insurance?
Well, a couple things. I had some friends who were in the retail side of things. And they asked me one day if I would want to make a little extra, if I wanted a side hustle, a side gig, being a part-time agent. So I thought, what the heck, why not? Knew a lot of people in town and got my insurance license and started out and attempted to make, a little bit of money on the side as a part-time agent, which morphed into trying to do it full-time. And finally figured out that I was not a very good closer. And rather than starve to death, one of my softball colleagues said, you might look at this job at the Department of Insurance in Cheyenne, which I started there as a rate and form analyst back a long time ago. And that's kind of where it all got started.
That's great. And then you've ended up in an array of positions. You worked in a health insurance plan company. Then you were deputy commissioner in my home state of Louisiana. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then you went on to Oregon. Then your first stint in Nevada, 2008, 2010. Then back to Louisiana. Then back to Nevada. So you've had some an interesting array of jobs moving through both the private industry, heading up regulatory and compliance, and then working for the division of insurance. I'd like to just talk about your Louisiana years for a second, because it is where I was born and raised, and you did say in the pre-show that you really enjoyed living there. I'm from Baton Rouge. You lived in Baton Rouge, and you got there right after a massive insurance event. You were there 2 weeks after Katrina hit. What was it like to step into the Louisiana Office of Health Insurance? I mean, right after this enormous event.
It was, as you might guess, a little overwhelming. I was living in Austin at the time, and prior to the day that I started, had really never set foot in Baton Rouge. I'd been to New Orleans a couple times. And seeing the enormity of the event and the number of people that had crowded the highways and were living in Baton Rouge at the time was certainly an eye opener. The time I spent there was absolutely fantastic. I had never met the commissioner before. Later in the week after Katrina, the office called and said, if you can, please come to Atlanta. We're having a meeting there of all the insurance entities. So all of the carriers are coming to meet with the commissioner, kind of, formulate a plan. And I met him there. And after making some small talk, he said, if you can find a place to live, you can have a job. And I ended up living for 3 months at a place called Bennett's Water Ski School in rural Zachary, Louisiana.
I went to high school not too far from there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
It was delightful. They called it a chateau. It was basically a one-room cabin, and it just fit the bill. But we worked our fannies off. We, it was 7 a.m. to 7, 8 p.m. 6 days a week for several months. I was the deputy commissioner for health insurance, and so we spent a lot of time trying to stand up the health payment system back to the providers in New Orleans and the affected parishes. So we really had a lot of challenges, but I came away just loving everything about Southern Louisiana and Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and truly, peace of my heart will always be in Louisiana.
Yeah, mine too. You gotta love the people more than anything.
Oh my gosh,
it's just,
yes.
like they'll just take the shirt off their back and give it to you, and it's really the way it is. You know, I've had more invitations to have dinner at people who I just met at their house, and they were serious. You know, they want you to come over and they want to feed you, and it's a really neat place. I'm glad you got to experience some years there and two different stints you had there. So let's just kind of fast forward to today. You know, you about the last 11 months roughly, you've been insurance commissioner for the state of Nevada. Nevada, sorry. And you just came as you were deputy commissioner in Washington. So what led to this latest stint, and what are you excited about in leading the insurance commission in Nevada?
Well, before I went to up to the state of Washington, I got to spend a little time with then candidate Lombardo when he was running for governor, and gave him about 45 minutes to an hour background on insurance issues in preparation for his campaign. And he remembered that when time came to start filling some positions, the position here was open, and his team was kind enough to ask me to return. And it has been a joy, being gone for almost 8 years. Things have changed quite a bit. But on the other hand, some things never change at all. Much of the staff had turned over. Many of the issues remain the same. But one of the things that's been a real challenge I see for our office is keeping up with the speed of technology and the technological changes in our industry. And that's one of the things we've been sprinting to make sure that we don't get behind what is going on in the industry.
Yeah, there's a lot moving, and you're ending up with brand new insurance products, right? That are maybe somewhat complicated to understand. Like if you jump into like gig economy insurance and you're looking at insuring Uber drivers and Airbnb homeowners, and there's new ways of them fractionalizing assets they own and then selling the use of them, and of course that use has to get insured, and that can be a little complicated to understand if they're getting a fair deal. As the regulator, I'm going to guess your top priority is protecting consumer rights and making sure that the public's interest in dealings with the insurance industry are represented. I'm guessing that's kind of the top priority for you.
Absolutely, that's the mission here. It's basically twofold, and that's clearly the first tenet is making sure that those consumers, Nevada's consumers, are protected to the extent that our legislative and statutory framework provide for that. And then the second piece is certainly company solvency. Yep. And that's where a lot of the technology, come into play. There's new investment vehicles that carriers can use. There's new ways for us to review and observe and evaluate the holdings that companies have. And it's all these tools and the technology around that to use and get to that level is what's really important for us, and what is also becoming a bit of a challenge. We'll talk about the vehicles and what's going on in the industry. I was a little over a month ago was at the InsurTech conference in Las Vegas, and had some downtime, and I was able to walk through the exhibit hall. And it's obviously, if you've been there, it's enormous. And as I wandered through the hall, looking at all the different entities that had booths and what was transpiring, I found it interesting that I came across a single traditional insurer that had a booth. One that, if you get a piece of the rock, you would have found them in the exhibit hall. And everything else was brand new, these brand new entities trying to figure out ways to use technology. Maybe this might be a little broad, but use technology to further the use of insurance or the sale of insurance to all kinds of different entities. I found that completely fascinating. That one, the number of exhibitors, and two, the lack of traditional carriers that were engaged with this.
Yeah, it's really a bold new world, and Rob and I were both there at the conference, and we got to see the same thing, right? And we've been there for a few years before that to see the evolution of InsurTech Connect and just the sheer number of providers in the space, the sheer number of InsurTechs that are starting as MGAs and evolving into carriers, but they're doing it in a very different way, and so we've definitely seen quite the evolution there. Rob, what you got?
Yeah, Scott, no, I would love for you to maybe summarize a little bit of your discussion and some of the other talking points from the panel at InsurTech Connect. I believe this is called Empowering the Future, State Insurance Commissioners Advancing Innovation and Collaboration. And also maybe just your thoughts, having served within departments of insurance and several different states, state-based regulation of insurance. What do you see as perhaps some of the pros as it comes to fostering innovation as opposed to potential, other regimes?
Well, I'll tackle that second one first, if I can. And state-based regulation is the utmost in consumer protection. There's been various inroads attempted over the last couple of decades to regulate insurance a little bit more at the federal level. We believe we're closer to our consumers. We understand the consumer issues in Nevada more so than a federal regulator might within the confines of the Beltway. So I think it's very important for us being able to work with our state legislature, dealing with the issues that's handed to us by the McCarran-Ferguson Act, to make sure we regulate this at a state level. The issues here in Nevada with wildfires, challenges here up north, with the challenges of a lot of people driving in a very confined area in the Las Vegas, Clark County metropolitan area, are unique to our state and certainly different from those in South Dakota or Texas or North Carolina. And we think those things are best regulated by the experts on the ground, and especially those where we are able to work closely with our state legislature in formulating, solutions to our unique state problems. So I think, I couldn't be a bigger cheerleader for state-based regulation. I think it's where we are as a nation, and I think it's where we're best served as a nation. Now, as far as our panel at InsurTech Connect, we had Doug Oman, who is a commissioner for the state of Iowa, who I think is one of the brightest insurance regulatory minds in the world. Doug's served in a couple of states, been the commissioner for a long time there in Iowa, which is an insurance-centric state. They have a great big footprint. And then we were joined by one of the deputies from Bermuda, Bahamas, maybe the Bahamas, and then a deputy commissioner Lowe from Pennsylvania. And so we had a very wide-ranging conversation about a number of issues. And one of the takeaways that I had was, something that we touched on a little bit ago about technology and the challenges that are endemic to us as regulators. One of the things I think I touched on is that, we are confronted with 21st century challenges on a lot of fronts as far as insurance is concerned. Much of our regulatory framework is based on 20th century thinking. So for us to really get our job done and do our consumers what they deserve, we need to get some 21st century thinking and 21st century technology in line with our mission in our processes here.
What does that look like? So if you have you have the insurance commission there. You've got a staff at your disposal. You've got a budget from the state. You've got some difficult choices every year where you allocate resources as an insurance commission. And certainly you can engage in the rulemaking process and and drive a lot more data to be reported to you. You can beef up all your reporting requirements on first and second reports of injury. There's a lot you can do as a regulator to centralize data in your state and to make good decisions with it. If you could waive, let me just put it this way, and I know there's probably some things you can and can't discuss, but if you could wave a magic wand as the insurance commissioner and do something big in your office and in the state, and it can be with or without technology, what would that be? Like what's something big that you would change if you could just do it immediately and snap your fingers?
Well, if high, being in the holiday season, high on our wish list is a data scientist. We're getting better and better at collecting data, but if you have data and are unable to read it or utilize it or spindle it or fold it or manipulate it, all you got is a bunch of numbers. We need to have the staff and a team available to be able to look at that and say, here's what we've got, and here's what these numbers are telling us. And I'll give you a quick example of that. We, unfortunately or fortunately, live in the rain cloud of California. And with that comes the threat of wildfires. Now in Nevada, knock on wood, we've been very fortunate not to have a singular catastrophic event. But we live close enough to California that our insureds are being challenged because of the threat and the propensity for a wildfire to spread through the Tahoe Basin, and either that or over the hill into Carson and Reno. But what can we do for our consumers? And so we've been collecting data. We're trying to figure out how to work closely with our admitted insurers to find a way to make sure that we can still have insurance that's affordable, that provides a good benefit, but also protects the industry from the threat of a catastrophic, challenging event like they do when hurricanes hit Florida, and the property casualty marketplace there gets significantly impacted because you have too many risks in a small pocket of population. All that kind of what I'm trying to say is, it'd be nice to be able to have that information, that data, and then be able to interpret that to say, here's the challenges that we've got, and here's the best way to address it.
That makes sense, and that's good to hear. There's always a flip side and a challenge to data collection, because collecting and normalizing massive amounts of data can be a big challenge. There are no real. I hate making bold, sweeping statements like this, but there's no real data standards in insurance, right? Everybody has a different way they ask for data, different field formats, different field values, which makes it very challenging for carriers and TPAs and others to submit all the loss data that people like you need to make decisions. Even though there are standard data formats, by state of how you want certain things done. There's no national standard that's actually adhered to, and that can make those kind of data collection and aggregation projects challenging. But certainly, I think it's where if I were a regulator, it's where I'd spend my time, is collecting more data, normalizing it, and then doing something with it, right? Because you can more proactively get involved, I think, and it's good to hear you say that.
Yeah, we started collecting data, for example, on the wildfire issue here about a year ago before I arrived, and we have just sending out our follow-up. So we've created a baseline, but I want to know, and take a look and see what this year's data will tell us. But I think there's probably some questions there's some data there that we're not collecting that might be of value as well. So that's the other thing a data scientist could assist us with, to make sure that we're answering or getting answers to all the questions that we need to be asking.
Yeah, Scott, it's kind of a follow-up to that. I'm curious your perspective of, obviously you manage $22 billion insurance market. You have, many, many admitted carriers in the state of Nevada. And so those are the folks that you interface with. Those are the folks that you're responsible for overseeing. But yet, they do business with, say, catastrophe modeling firms, right, that are providing the wildfire model. And there may be several admitted insurers all using, right, the same model. In the healthcare space, right, they could be all using the similar electronic medical record provider. You name it. There's new technologies that are coming in, the use of artificial intelligence and things like that can spin into products that are selling into the industry that they can use. So I'm just curious, how do you learn about, how do you interface with some of these non-insurance entities that have an impact on the insurance market? And, do you have proactive conversations with, say, technology startups? And then would that happen in your office in Nevada, or is that kind of under the auspices of, say, NAIC?
Well, that is a great question. And there's multifaceted answers to that. We just spent a week at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners fall annual meeting in Orlando, and had the opportunity to sit down with a number of reinsurers, for example, which we ordinarily wouldn't have that opportunity to do so, and talk to them about some of these issues in our area. We statewide here, we've always had a series of advisory committees, and for example, we just not 2-3 weeks ago had a property and casualty insurance advisory committee meeting, a life and health advisory committee meeting, and then we also do one with producers and brokers. And from those meetings, we glean a lot of information. And directly and one of the things that came directly out of that was, we asked the folks from ISO Verisk to come up and talk to us about Fireline, which is a cat mapping service that they provide. And the staff and I think learned an awful lot about what goes into that, how those cat maps are developed. And the next step for us then is to sit down with the carriers and say, this is what we know, but tell us, how do you utilize these? And do it on a carrier by carrier basis, because as you said, it may be different from one carrier to the next as to how they utilize their services. So, as we start parsing these pieces down, not only do we talk with those whom we regulate, but there's some others that we want to make sure we understand how their input is into the marketplace, and then how that directly affects our Nevada consumers.
Excellent. Let's wrap the conversation up talking about new tech. I mean, we've got an era where this device on your wrist can tell you just about everything off of your body, and is being used for rehab on work comp injuries. It's being used for detection of slip, trip, and falls. Is being used for all kinds of really cool things. We've got a world in which we can get real-time telemetry off of every vehicle that's being insured. We have a world in which we can get real-time data on every property that's insured, and even have remote control of really important things like water main shut off in case there's a leak, and you can use AI to detect leaks. I mean, there's a lot going on in tech, and you saw that at InsurTech Connect. On top of that, there's companies trying to change insurance, so you have parametric insurance and pay by use, and there's a lot going on in the space. What are you most excited about? Let's keep it in the positive realm. As the chief regulator for an incredible state, what are you most excited about when you look at all the innovation going on in technology and insurance?
Man, selfishly, the number of tools that are being developed for regulators. We used to do everything on with spreadsheets and 6-column green paper, accounting paper. But the tools, for instance, our examiners and analysts use a program called Teammate And we're phasing out of Teammate. Some states have already started using a program called Teammate Plus, which is Teammate on steroids. It is a phenomenal tool that will help our folks do their jobs faster, smoother, smarter, more efficiently, and highlight those challenges within those companies that we're tasked with making sure we oversee that much easier for us. So there's tools like that, and then the education piece of this, and learning how to deal with those things. I think that's one of the big challenges for us in a small state like Nevada, especially in a place like Carson City, where it's not the easiest place to recruit great regulatory talent. So that's one of the real challenges. James, you mentioned at the top education, and I want to give a bit of a plug to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, has just started a Center for Insurance and Risk Management at the business school there, at the Lee Business School. And on top of that, they're planning on rolling out very soon a full 4-year major program in insurance and risk management, which we are tremendously excited for here on the West Coast. We have the opportunity to interact and spend a lot of time with the school and the program, and thrilled that in talking to some of the professors and spending some time with some of these great students, that, my gosh, our industry isn't going to be in great hands with these young leaders that are coming out. But they're the ones that are going to embrace this technology and embrace these tools and get us old dogs learning those new tricks.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Rob, any closing comments?
No, just really appreciate you coming on, Scott. As James mentioned at the top, this is a perspective in 120 odd episodes we haven't really gotten on the InsurTech Geek podcast. So it's just a pleasure to be able to talk with you, to gain from your perspective, and I know our audience will really benefit. Just quickly, if folks wanted to reach out to you, if they had more questions, what's the best way they can find you?
Well, they could find us on our website, which is doi.nv.gov. So all of our email addresses are on there. You can reach me at icommish, ICOMMISH, at doi.nv.gov. And we'd love to hear from folks, the questions that they might have, or ideas that they might want to share with us. We try to be lifelong learners here, and certainly the talk about technology and the need to keep up. We'll take all the tools that we can use.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott Kipper. He's the insurance commish at the state of Nevada up there in Carson City. And really an honor to have you on. Appreciate it. And thank you for your love that you feel for my home state of Louisiana. I'm in Texas now. I'm a Texan now, but you're not born and raised in Louisiana. Always Louisianian, right? I'm always a Louisianian. So there
you go.
Super appreciate your love for my state, and appreciate your service serving the citizens of Nevada and their interest, and obviously providing for a well-functioning, well-regulated insurance industry. So thanks for your time today, and thanks for being on the InsurTech Geek podcast.
James, Rob, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Scott Kipper from the Nevada Division of Insurance. We will see you at the next show. This has been the InsurTech Geek podcast, powered by JB Knowledge, jbknowledge.com. The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. I've been your host, James Benham, that's jamesbenham.com, with co-host Rob Galbraith at endofinsurance.com. Thank you for joining us today. Look forward to meeting up again. We're taking you on a journey through InsurTech, so enjoy the ride and geek out.